This is something that I had to heal myself. And as an overperformer and an overachiever, I had the corporate job, I was a college athlete, I moved across the world for a role in Australia as an American when I was 28 years old. And I had suffered from hormonal imbalances since I was 18. I just didn't realize it. I ended up working with a skin specialist who was disguised as a naturopath almost. It's like I was going to see her for my skin, but I accidentally ended up healing my entire body and my hormones in the process. But it's funny, sometimes we get what we want, but we end up getting what we ultimately need in the process of doing that. That was how I healed myself. And all of a sudden I was sleeping through the night. I was feeling less irritable at work. I was feeling far less stressed. My skin started to heal. My hair wasn't as brittle. I had an irregular cycle for years, and all of a sudden it returned back to normal. That's why I went back to school when I was still in my corporate job to learn. I've healed myself, but how do I learn how to do this so I can help other people? And so I learned how to run functional medicine lab tests. I learned how to create individualized protocols for women just like me so that I can, what took me 10 years to heal is taking my clients 3 to 6 months.
Welcome to the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast. Of course, my name is Sophia Soul from Sacred You, but with me, more importantly, is we have the beautiful Chelsea. Welcome, Chelsea, to our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be with your community.
It is, and I'm really excited and looking forward to having a conversation which is affecting so many women at all different ages, and that's all about, balancing our hormones. So
That's right.
So Chelsea, can we just start first of all? Tell us about you, your beautiful self, and how you got into this whole area of helping other women with their hormone balance.
This is something that I had to heal myself. And as an overperformer and an overachiever, I had the corporate job, I was a college athlete, I moved across the world for a role in Australia as an American when I was 28 years old. And I had suffered from hormonal imbalances since I was 18. I just didn't realize it. And it's so funny looking back on my story because I think I have a lot of those symptoms that most women have, but think are normal. And the thing is that they're common, especially in the US, but they're not normal. And I spent 18 from age 18, I spent almost a decade just poor sleep, absolute exhaustion, chasing energy, skin problems, issues with appetite regulation, always being feeling like I'm starving, having crazy cravings. And those started when I was 18 and went through until my early 30s when I learned how to rebalance this working with someone who, it's funny when I look back at it, because I didn't know this was a hormonal issue. I ended up working with a skin specialist who was disguised as a naturopath almost. It's like I was going to see her for my skin, but I accidentally ended up healing my entire body and my hormones in the process. But it's funny, sometimes we get what we want, but we end up getting what we ultimately need in the process of doing that. And so that was how I healed myself. And all of a sudden, I was sleeping through the night. I was feeling less irritable at work. I was feeling far less stressed. My skin started to heal. My hair wasn't as brittle. I had an irregular cycle for years, and all of a sudden, it returned back to normal. And it's so interesting to look back at America when we look at things like food supply, when we look at things like stress levels and how we treat ourselves and how much we work because it's such an integrative process. And that's why I went back to school when I was still in my corporate job to learn. I've healed myself, but how do I learn how to do this so I can help other people? And so I learned how to run functional medicine lab tests. I learned how to create individualized protocols for women just like me so that I can, what took me 10 years to heal is taking my clients 3 to 6 months. And so I'm very passionate about helping women heal. And it's on so many different levels, right? It's the physical level, but it's also the emotional level. And we always have to look at some of the distressing emotions behind hormonal imbalances. Addictions to stress is a big one. They're very addicted to how they feel when they're stressed because that's what's powering their energy levels. And there's so much to unravel here. And so taking that fully integrative approach is what really helps not only accelerate clients, but also help them maintain the results for the long term. Because that's really the goal, is to restore power to the female body so that they can look and feel the way they want to, so that they can actually have the impact that they're meant to have.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing it. You have an amazing journey, and I'd just like to acknowledge that to start with. And you've given me so much to talk about. So in particular, you say that you were 18 when this first started to happen. When we talk about generally hormone problems, hormone issues for women and stuff, is generally thought of menopause is 50 plus, or even just before 50, but 18. So hormone imbalances can really affect all women.
That's right. It can start as soon as a woman is cycling in her teenage years. It can start as early as that. I have moms who have 14-year-old daughters who are struggling with skin issues and water retention and severe pain around their periods. And then I also have women who are in their 60s and they're postmenopausal and they're struggling with the belly fat and they're struggling to sleep. They're still having hot flashes. And so it's really a full spectrum. And when women can learn to keep their hormones in balance, that's where the magic is. That's where you start to look and feel like a normal human. And I think so many women just accept pain or suffering or discomfort or symptoms as part of being a woman, but that's not actually the case because when the body is in balance and when it has what it needs and less of what it doesn't need, you can feel so much better. And it happens really quickly.
For sharing that. Now you mentioned the US and how people are so stressed, but I know it's everywhere. We're in Australia everywhere, everyone, and I'm going to say everyone because whether people work or not, it's the society, the world that we now live in. It's a pandemic of stress. So what role does stress really play in affecting our hormones? How does it affect us, and how can we manage it?
It's everything. And when I look at the root cause of different hormonal imbalances, stress is almost always part of the picture, if not one of the main root cause. So if we just want to break it down on a physiological level of what's happening with stress, when stress is high, cortisol is elevated, which is a stress hormone. Now, this is problematic for a number of different reasons because it actually sets your other hormones off balance because it's stealing all of the, basically, for a lack of a better description, it's stealing the hormones that would otherwise be making a woman sex hormones. So that's where you can see things like estrogen dominance, where the estrogen to progesterone ratio for a woman is off balance because all of the precursor to progesterone is going to cortisol instead. And that's something we call the pregnenolone steal. And this is for maybe the science people out there. Even if you look at a hormonal pathway where you realize that cortisol is quite literally stealing a woman's sex hormones and causing the imbalance in the first place, you start to take it a little bit more seriously. Now, cortisol can cause a number of other very common symptoms. So if we look at things like belly fat, that's typically cortisol related. If we look at things like sugar cravings, typically cortisol related. And even things like sleep issues. So when you see women waking up at 3 or 4 a.m., that's a cortisol issue. Cortisol is not supposed to be that elevated at 3 a.m., but as cortisol starts to rise at 3 or 4 a.m., it's going to wake you up if it is elevated because you're stressed. And that could be for any number of reasons. I think one thing we talk about is in my program, for example, is looking at the different actual sources of stress because it's not always what we think it is. It's most people think it's just, oh, I'm having a stressful work day or I'm having a stressful argument with my partner. But there are so many other sources of stress that women are not aware of. And it can come from things like looking at your phone. It could come from distressing emotions that you haven't actually learned how to process in your body and you're storing and stashing emotions away that are causing high cortisol. It could be from food sensitivities is a big one. Women who have food sensitivities that they're not aware of, or a gut overgrowth where they're having a yeast or bacterial overgrowth, or sometimes even a parasite. There are all sorts of different issues that women don't realize they have. And that's why when I work with a woman, we really have to assess all the symptoms together and look for those little clues of where is the stress actually coming from? Because even if she says she's not stressed, there could be all these things underneath the hood that we need to look at from like a functional medicine perspective. So that's why we run there like a gut test, a hormone test, a sometimes a heavy metals test because that could be another one. So we need to look at all these different things, and typically when we're able to remove those toxicities from the body and replenish nutrient deficiencies, that's where the stress from all sources comes down, and that's what really restores health to the female body.
Oh, it's a lot more than just sitting and meditating.
That's right.
Meditation isn't always the complete answer. So yes, we definitely need to look at that even more and the holistic way and stuff. And you just gone into another question. You might have already answered it, I do think. How does gut health and our hormones connect? Like, why is our gut health essential?
Our gut is our second brain. And when it's not working properly, our neurotransmitters are not firing properly. So it's not uncommon for me to see a woman whose gut is a total mess have things like depression, have things like anxiety. And it's not to say that the gut always is the only source causing that, but I always look to that. When a woman comes to me with low mood, low energy, sugar cravings, feeling depressed, feeling anxious, we always have to look at cortisol and we always have to look at the gut. Now they operate hand in hand, right? So when the gut is out of balance, it can throw off your hormones. And when your hormones are out of balance, it can also throw off your gut. And that's because they work together. And so the gut brain connection is very strong. And when we look at our endocrine system, for example, with estrogen, our gut is very critical in actually metabolizing and detoxing hormones. So if our gut's not working properly, we can have an excess of estrogen. So I see this all the time of women who are estrogen dominant. So they're having tender breasts, they're having a lot of puffiness, a lot of weight gain. And it's also accompanied by the fact that their gut's not working properly. So we have to get everything working together. And then when we look at things like cortisol, like stress hormones, right? So when stress is high, your gut shuts down. So they work together. Like the gut can mess up the hormones. And then if your cortisol is high, it's going to shut down your digestion. And that's where that kind of compromises the overall gut function and also just the quality of your gut lining. And so that's where a lot of women can start to see things like leaky gut and a lot of food sensitivities because they're so stressed that their digestion is never properly working. So they're always feeling bloated. They're constipated. They're not, or sometimes they'll even have loose stool because when you have high cortisol, sometimes you could actually evacuate your bowels because your body is signaling that you're supposed to be running from a predator. And you constantly send these signals to your body of different processes in your body to shut down because your stress hormones are activated. So we just have to remember that stress management strategy needs to be taken so seriously if you actually want to look and feel the way you want to.
So interesting, isn't it? It's like you go down a rabbit hole. There's so much to think about and to find out. That's why we need beautiful people like yourself who have studied it to help. So I'll certainly be looking at your website, and for everyone who is watching and listening, do click on the links below and check out what Chelsea offers. And I want to go more into gut health. We hear about flora and stuff in our gut. So can you explain or tell us really what is gut health? Is it only for digestion that all our food gets digested properly, or is it a lot more?
It's a lot more than that. Now, obviously, it's taking all of the raw material to create everything that your body needs as far as resources, right? And so you have your gut flora, which is you have these billions of different, we call them good bacteria sitting in your gut. Now, the problem is things like medication, things like birth control, stress, diet. Even if you're eating vegetables and fruit that are sprayed with pesticides, that's essentially bug spray. So you're eating bug spray. That's going to affect your overall gut flora, right? And so most people are not taking a high quality probiotic, or they could be taking a probiotic, but they also may have an overgrowth of bad bacteria, which is very common for a lot of my poor little clients who they've been on birth control for 10 years and their gut is completely compromised. So they do have those symptoms of yeast or bacterial overgrowth in their gut. It's also where your neurotransmitters are made, right? And so most of your serotonin is made in the gut. And if your gut's not working properly, you're going to start to feel those symptoms of low serotonin. And a lot of that stuff that people describe as like depressive symptoms are going to start to happen. And it's the same with feelings of anxiety. So it's really important for women who are experiencing symptoms like that to really look at under the hood at what's going on with their gut. And unfortunately, these are, I think it's worth mentioning. This is a bit more of an advanced concept, but really understanding the man for the job when it comes to looking at these holistic symptoms. Because I think a lot of people will go to a medical doctor, and medical doctors are fantastic for diagnosing disease. They are fantastic at keeping you alive and helping refer you to specialists if they think there's something that is going to compromise your health. But when we look at actually just optimizing and helping you look and feel the way you want to, they're just not the man for the job, right? So most clients I speak to go to a doctor, say they're feeling low mood, they're struggling with weight gain, and the doctor says eat less, exercise more, here's an antidepressant. 5 years later, they're on a call with me and we're trying to actually get to the bottom of it because it didn't work for them. So it's we have to look at the different solutions and make sure you have the right, I call it assembling your health team so that you really have the right people in place to help you hit the goals you want to hit. Because the women I work with, they don't want to sit around and be depressed for 5 years. They don't want to not be able to zip up their jeans. They're very proactive. They want to take action and they want the right person in the job to help them. And that's where I've been able to come in and help women get results that they just didn't get through a doctor, or they didn't get through a functional medicine doctor, or they didn't get through a psychiatrist or whoever it is for them. This is where we need to take it a level deeper because they're not getting the care and the solutions that they're actually looking for.
Again, there's so much out there, and yes, we really is a time to look at the deeper reasons, the deeper causes, the deeper messages. And thank you so much, Chelsea. I love what you say, especially about eating. Women could have a really healthy diet, eating lots of fruit and vegetables, but doesn't realize that the pesticides that's on these fruit and vegetables, even if you wash them because they've gone in, actually be killing off the flora that's in our stomachs and stuff. Isn't that amazing? That's a really good reason to be organic out there, become organic. I love organic food personally, but I never even thought that is a after effect of eating just normal fruit and veggies that are sprayed so much. We know how much they're sprayed. So much for sharing them. Really, it's really amazing. And what about emotional challenges? Mental challenges, how do we address them? Is that also to do with our gut, or is there other ways of addressing our emotional and mental challenges?
There is an energetics of weight loss that I've observed with clients. And typically, if a client is going through, they're doing all the things, they're slamming all the boxes, they're doing the protocols, and the weight's just not coming off. We have to look a layer deeper at emotions. Now, obviously, when we talk about things like cortisol and stress hormones, when someone has unresolved emotions, I'll typically see high cortisol levels, right? And I see that all the time with, for example, my PCOS clients. They typically have a trauma or a serious past issue that they have not really excavated. And so when we talk about actually metabolizing emotions, it goes hand in hand with our ability to metabolize food, right? And so I see women all the time who are constipated or their bowels aren't working properly because they're not really digesting their emotions. And I see it all the time. And they create this resistance in their body by not being willing to actually feel feelings. And so I think it's really interesting. I look at myself, I don't think emotional intelligence was modeled particularly well for me by my parents. And so I just tornadoed through life. Like I had a stick of dynamite up my bum all the time. I was just running around. I didn't feel my feelings because I moved so fast that I didn't have to feel. And that's why I had gut issues. That's why I had hormonal issues. It's because I didn't create space to rest. I didn't create space to actually feel my feelings. And I've noticed since I've done that, there's only so much healing I could achieve without doing that deeper level of work because it would always kind of recur. It would always come back because I didn't actually, you have to parallel path the physical protocols and the emotional protocols in order for them to actually stick for the long term. I could give all the supplements, all the protocols to a client, but if she's not doing that deeper level of work, she's going to solve the problem. And then in 6 months, she's going to come talk to me again because this problem's going to keep coming back. The weight's going to keep coming back on. The gut issue is never going to resolve itself. The thyroid is never going to fully heal because they both go hand in hand. So typically, what I do is we have to start somewhere, right? Like we have to start. Women don't always want to do that deeper level of work right off the bat. So we have to get them some results, get some weight off. The stomach is flatter. The postmenopausal woman is starting to lose the muffin top, and she's really happy about that. And then we have to take it a level deeper to say, okay, where did this actually come from? What was the actual source of this issue that you have? Because these symptoms don't come out of nowhere. Like they don't just happen. They happen because of either a neglect, you're giving yourself too much of something or not enough of something else. And sometimes that's physical and sometimes that emotion is emotional. So we have to look at all things. And for a lot of women, that's really, they might hear that and be like, oh, that sounds so complicated and that sounds like so much work. And the reality is, it is. But in these kind of transformations, that's why lives change. That's why women their entire life changes when they go through a health coaching program. They're not just zipping up jeans and all of a sudden they're just skinny. They become a different person in the process. And that's why when we look at things like Ozempic and all these fast fixes, it's not that I don't think there's time and place for those things, but we have to understand that these kind of transformations require a full life audit. We have to look at everything to figure everything out so we can take those next steps and help you become that person.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm sitting here and again, totally agree. Women tend to hold their emotions in their stomach. And that's what starts a lot of health problems because we don't move those emotions, basically. We don't process those emotions and they're held there. So thank you. Now you mentioned deeper work. And if you don't mind, if it doesn't get too personal, you said that you've gone into deep work. What did that mean? What does deeper work actually mean?
The big unlock for me was understanding my core distressing emotions and where they come from. That always comes from something we experience as a child, right? So for me, I don't have, some of my clients have very significant traumas growing up. I don't necessarily fall into that camp. But if I look back at the entire suite of symptoms that presented for me, they came during an extremely stressful period of my life. And that period of time was where I'm one of four kids. My parents are both pastors, so they're ministers, Christian ministers, and I'm the oldest of four. Now, I was in college at the time, but I was on the road for a field hockey game because I was a college athlete. And I got a call from my dad's best friend who, let's just say, we're not always on the phone. There's no reason for this person to be calling me. It was very strange. And so I picked up, and he told me that my brother had been airlifted from an American football game because he had basically went down from a tackle and didn't get up. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know his condition, but my dad's friend Marty said this it doesn't sound good. We don't know if he's going to make it through the night. We hope he does. The brain surgeon says there's a chance he dies and there's a 50% chance he lives with significant disabilities.
Mhm.
And so they were going in to operate. And so that's the first night that I stopped sleeping. And from there on out for years and years, I just had so much stress in my physical body that I didn't sleep. And that's where it always starts with that one thing, right? And after that, the cravings start. And then after that, my period it became really painful, but then it vanished and it was very irregular. And a woman is so sensitive to these little changes and these big emotional swings, right? And for me, luckily, my brother did survive, but he had significant disabilities and he now lives in a home. And obviously, that's very disruptive for a family and your parents are completely absorbed in care and rehabilitation and multiple surgeries for that child. And so that's when my symptoms first started to come up. And it's not dissimilar for other clients who go through a period of extreme stress. It could be a divorce, it could be loss of a parent, it could be a trauma that happened as a child. Whatever that is for them, we have to look at really working through. I'm obviously not a medical professional or mental health professional, but what we have to do is really understand our emotions and what emotions either came up for us as a child during those experiences or through those experiences later in life and what we make it mean about us that those emotions come up. And so understanding your core distressing emotions, learning how to feel them, actually feel them for the first time is what was and continues to be my biggest growth edge and most of my clients as well. And some are willing to do it and some are not. And the ones that are not, I continually see them circle back around with the same issues until you're really ready to release that resistance and release those emotions and create the courage to feel those emotions. It's really difficult to take that step forward. So for a lot of women, I do have women who are in therapy as well. So they have their therapist and then they're working with me as well from a health perspective because they need that extra support. And so it really depends on the person. I tend to do really well with clients who have done some level of talk therapy. They do really well in my programs and they move much faster. That doesn't mean it's required, but the ones who are willing to really lift up the hood and look underneath are able to just accelerate much faster.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'd just like to just take a moment just to honor you for sharing that and acknowledging you and wishing you and your family, especially your brother, all the best. I know it can be very traumatic when things like that happen, and especially even if it is in your past things, but it can be very traumatic. And thank you for sharing it and for, you know, working on all those issues that we suppress, because as you said, women tend to suppress a lot of stress about the little things. We don't even realize it. And what about if someone is leading a reasonably stressful life? Okay. And they're doing what they can to manage that stress in today's world, whether it's a woman who may be a single mum, plus she works, plus everything else, and doing whatever she can. Is there any foods or anything in particular that really help balance our hormones?
This is a skill, right? I think a lot of people are looking for a yes, no list. But the skill of eating for hormone balance is one that women learn. And this is what I coach women through the process of doing this. So I do a 2-week boot camp where I basically teach women how to do this. And I do this every couple months. And it's life-changing. Like women come into this boot camp and they're like, I had no idea. I thought I was eating the right things. I thought I was being healthy. I thought, but they don't have the result. And so we bring them in and we look at meal timing. We look at the type of foods they're actually eating and the type of foods that they're not eating. Because at the end of the day, what we don't want is a restrictive diet where women feel totally, okay, all I can eat is fruits and vegetables and lean meats. Okay, Chelsea, that's not going to happen. That's not sustainable. So we have to, for me, it's about teaching women a sustainable system of eating, but also how to navigate a food supply that Sophia does as well as I do. Like the food supply, even in Australia, is just completely messed up. And so I think, but women see that and they're like, they're totally overwhelmed by the process. They don't know where to start. They don't, everything is bad and they just get super overwhelmed. So they're like, how am I going to even start? So if we take a step back and look at this, like we do have to understand that in order to make these changes, hire a coach to help you learn this skill, right? This is truly a skill. Learning 80% of the foods you should be eating, the highest volume of food should be those high vibe whole foods. And if you're like, Chelsea, what's a high vibe food? I have a list of foods that I give clients and I'll break it down for you right now so you can understand. But 80% of what you put in your mouth should be those high vibe foods. And then 20% should be fun foods. Enjoy whatever you want, but we have to build structure around it, right? So we're not having it all the time or every single day, but it's structured into our weeks in a way that makes us feel, still allow us to get us to the result, but enjoyment is part of the hormone balance process. If we're not having our favorite foods, if we can never have a pizza, that's just as bad for your hormones as having pizza every day. You know what I mean? So we have to really balance it. In general, the best advice I can give for women is eating whole foods as close to nature as possible in the right amounts, 80% of the time. So for most women, that looks, I have a breakfast smoothie. I'll just break down what I eat in a day, which I typically will recommend for clients. A breakfast smoothie that really helps women who have that high cortisol. They're waking up super, super busy. They're running to the office. They're doing kid drop-offs. They're getting their micronutrients. They're getting 2 scoops of whole food protein. They're getting a bunch of cups of fruits and vegetables that's very easily digested. So they're able to digest it even when their cortisol is high. For lunch, we're doing things like healthy carbohydrates, sweet potatoes. We're doing nice lean meats, and red meats, totally fine as well. You just want to look for quality over quantity, right? Grass-fed organic is always going to be the best. I know that's cost prohibitive for some people. So you have to look at your resources, how much money you have, how much time you have, and match it back to what actually makes sense for you. And this is why a coach is really important, because what works for one person is not going to work for the other person. But things like organic tofu, organic chicken, whatever you can do. But let's quickly talk about what to avoid. For most women, when we talk about hormone balance, we want to reduce high inflammation foods. So that's anything processed. That's gluten and dairy, unfortunately, are not great for the hormones. And there's a couple of reasons for that. We look at things like cow's milk, just a very high inflammation protein. So things like A2 milk, much better. Things like sheep's milk, goat's milk are much better. Obviously, coconut yogurt, coconut milk, almond milk, all those are fantastic. But just avoiding the sugar, the gluten, the dairy is going to be the fastest way to really get results and start to balance your hormones. And then we have to look at things like meal timing, like restructuring meal timing can be massive for women's hormones balance. They're eating spending 6 to 7 hours in between meals, maybe, and then being absolutely starving and then overeating at night. So, really teaching women how to build structure around their meal times. If we look at the more advanced protocols that I do with clients who have already mastered high vibe eating, we plan it around our cycle. And now this is obviously only relevant for women who are cycling, who are naturally cycling, who are not on a hormonal contraceptive. It's not quite as relevant for women who are postmenopausal, but planning how much you eat, what you eat, and when around your cycle is that next level that can really help you just feel and look amazing.
I'm sure it would. Food affects us so much, and if I can add also, for me, Chelsea, like when you mention cow's milk is no good. If we listen to our bodies, it tells you what we need. And I've naturally just gone off dairy and being a vegetarian and naturally gone to good, healthy fruit and vegetables as much as possible in today's world without growing my own, because unfortunately I can't grow my own, but as much as possible. But listening to your bodies, and I think you are a shining example of listening to your bodies and looking after it. And can I just ask you, just with that, before I want to move into your actual business and what you've established, but what about supplements? You mentioned protein in your morning shakes. Are there any actual supplements that are actually good for you? Because we live in you go into a supermarket, a chemist, you go to health food store, there are aisles and shelves of supplements. Are they actually beneficial?
Definitely. Now, what we have to do is make sure we're getting our supplements from a good source, right? And so typically I will always use functional medicine brand supplements. They're a little bit more expensive. They're not always available over the counter. You typically will have to go through a practitioner like myself or a naturopath or someone to get these, but they've delivered incredible results for me. They've delivered incredible results for clients. And so some of the most common ones that people can look for today, if they don't have a health coach, are magnesium. Fantastic. A full spectrum magnesium just to help with sleep, with knocking down elevated cortisol is incredible. Vitamin D, which kind of helps, it's cofactor with magnesium, so they work together, also helps with elevating mood. Things like a practitioner grade omega-3 or fish oil as it would be known, making sure that you're not getting it from Amazon or Costco or Chemist Warehouse. You want to be getting these from a functional medicine company so that they're temperature controlled, because when they're not temperature controlled, they can tend to go rancid, which can actually have a detrimental effect on the body as well. And that's the same with any supplement. Like they could be more harmful than they are good if they're not high quality. I put every woman I work with on a very high quality multivitamin just to help replenish no matter how good our diets are, Sophia, like we're just nutrient deficient because our soils are, unfortunately. So we just got to do that high quality multi, and things like zinc are fantastic for the gut, for the skin. Women typically love doing something like that as well.
So magnesium is very good for everyone. I think, and of course,
Yes.
vitamin D. We don't generally, especially myself included, like the beautiful sun's out there, but I'm sitting in here, so we don't get a lot of vitamin D. And we also live in a world where getting too much vitamin D from the sun is also very detrimental. Getting some good supplements like that is very good. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Let's go into your business and what you can actually offer women. Now, I've heard that you've created the Healthy Hustle method. Tell us what that is.
Healthy Hustle method is designed to help busy, driven women release weight and feel amazing by balancing hormones. And we do that without endless cardio. We do that without restrictive diets. This is a very anti-diet culture, because in case it wasn't obvious from everything I'm banging on about today, that I'm not about diets. That's not how this works. This is about rhythms of success. This is about systems of success that help you feel and look the way you want to, because I'm the kind of woman who wants it all. I want the relationship. I want the successful career. I want to be in the gym hitting my PRs on my deadlifts. I want to have the social life. I don't want to be a hermit in my house who's never hanging out with my friends and who's skipping meals and who's anxious about going out and having cocktails. That's not the vibe. I want all of those things. And Healthy Hustles is designed for those women who they want to perform, but they also want to enjoy their life. Like they don't want to be, there are certain people who want to be very rigid and very into biohacking to the nth degree. I like to have that very well-rounded, balanced approach. And that's what the healthy hustle is all about. So I created this based on my own learning, my own schooling, my own healing, but also just really building that community of women who they always want more. They just always want to be better. They always want to look better. They always want to feel better. Like I've just become so obsessed with feeling good. That's what I teach my clients how to do. So it's not about you can't eat this and you can't eat that. It's like, how can we gather all the information, all the research, all the protocols, and put it together in a way that's very cohesive, it's sustainable, it helps women actually lose weight and feel good and keep it off. Like it's very common for clients. I have two offerings. Obviously, the boot camp is an amazing kickstart for women who want to lose their first 5 to 10 pounds. And then I have a 6 month program for those women who are like, I want that deeper level of healing. I want to lose that weight. I want to keep it off. There's women up in there who have lost up to 45 pounds. They want to start sleeping again. They want to fix their sleep. They want to release the belly fat. They want to pull the jeans over their hips that they have didn't think they would wear after having a baby. I have tons of moms who are looking to rebalance after having a baby because they don't feel themselves. And this is about healing your relationship with food and exercise and with yourself, because that's inextricably linked in this. And so when we talk about the inner work that we talked about earlier, it's like, how do you think it'd feel about yourself? And typically, if we can just restore power to the body, get women eating the right things, they start to feel differently about themselves because they're just operating on a different frequency. And it's just so sad for me to look around and see so many friends and so many family members just vibrating at a lower level because they're not eating, they don't know how to take care of themselves. They haven't learned this skill. Like as someone who came from corporate, it's like I'm very interested in building skills and helping women build skills. And it's not a diet, it's not something you do for 2 weeks, it's building a new skill and a new lifestyle. And so coaching women through that is incredible because I see them go from here to here. They release the weight, the energy increases. They become better partners, they become better mothers, they become better people. And their contribution to the world is so much bigger because they have that energetic capacity that they didn't before. And so the healthy hustle is really about helping a generation of women heal because women don't know, they just don't know how to eat. They're not present in their bodies. They don't understand how to get this result because there's so much noise in the market and there's so many, when you follow the dollars, you realize that there's big pharma over here telling you that you should just get on birth control and you should just get on this antidepressant and you should just blah 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 do whatever is over here. And then you have these Instagram influencers over here being like, you should be doing a bulletproof coffee, and meanwhile it could be completely wrecking their hormones. And it's like, how do we just bring this all together based on the research, the results, and just what will actually work for women long term? And that's where I see myself coming in, is like collating all of this in a way that will actually resonate with women, that is not going to come from a place of policing their behavior and policing their eating, but comes from a place of here are the skills, go forth and create a new life and body for yourself with this information.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And Chelsea, can I just say again, you are a living example of practicing what you're talking about, practicing what you're preaching, because we can see how you are vibrating and radiating, even though we're on Zoom, we're online, but I can feel your energy. So I just like to thank you for sharing that. And of course, women can contact you no matter where they are. We live in an age and online world. You can talk to women all over the world.
That's right.
And so for everyone who is watching or listening, do click on those links below and reach out to Chelsea, because this woman is amazing. You can see that you have used your methods to transform your life and the life of others. So thank you. And Chelsea, is there anything else? I'm going to hand it over to you. What else would you like to share for our podcast? Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about?
For women who are listening and they're experiencing some of these symptoms and they just feel stuck, I just want you to know that being stuck is a choice and moving forward is a choice. And it's really difficult to choose to move forward when you don't have the energy, where you don't have the spark plugs of life, where you feel you're at the end of your rope. But I just want you to know that I see women transform every single day just because they chose to make a brave decision. And it's not always easy, but sometimes it takes hearing a message like this to pull you out of a really dark place so that you can actually look and feel the way you've always wanted to. And that is a result that is completely possible for you. So, if anything, I hope today's conversation helped drop someone else's results into your reality to know that it's possible, because I've been in that spot myself where I was just chasing, I felt like I was just constantly chasing energy and feeling so distraught and so unhappy with my body and my energy levels and my performance, that I just want to encourage you to take a step. If anything today resonated with you, there's so much hope for you and there's so much possibility for healing that you didn't even know was possible. So that's what I would want to leave with all the women who may be struggling, and they could be new moms, they could be women going through menopause. Like, there's so many solutions that you may not be aware of yet.
And of course, that first step would be to come and talk to you, totally. But is there any other first step in meantime before they get to talk to you? Is there any first step that women can take just to start them on that journey, on the right path?
So many. And I have a free ebook that breaks all of the stuff I'm going to say now into detail. Prioritize your sleep. Wake up in the morning, get a lot of water in to help hydrate your gut and your brain, give you energy. Have a little squeeze of lemon, some sea salt, have a really nice breakfast smoothie. Reduce the one thing I can say right now is just like processed food, sugar, just take it out for a couple of days and just see how you feel. Just little things like that can make such a difference in your vibration in a very short period of time. Get outside for a walk. We don't have to be so dramatic where we're on the stair stepper for 2 hours. It's just adding non-exercise movement throughout your day just to give you energy. Because let's put it this way, like, most women don't have an energy, they don't have too much energy, they don't have enough energy. So it's, what are these little things you can do to just replenish deficiencies and start giving yourself energy so that then you can take the next step? It's like always just baby steps, micro habits that are going to help you take the next step and the next step and the next step. This doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be overwhelming, but it's just those little intuitive things of just giving your body nice little inputs to help you get some little wins.
And yes, it's those micro steps. So it's micro steps to take, and the more we can take the little ones, the better that we feel, which allows us to take even bigger steps. And so even if it's just moving, getting outside, getting away from being stuck on a, and I'm speaking of myself, but I know there's a lot of women out there who do the same, especially for entrepreneurs who are doing it by themselves and think that we have to spend hours doing work, but forget that we've just got outdoors, just out here to go out and get some fresh air. Thank you, Chelsea. It has really been an honour to talk to you today. It truly has. And I will certainly be checking out your website and encouraging everyone else to click on those links below and check out Chelsea's website. Have a beautiful day. And I hope to talk to you again. Please do come back again.
Thank you. It was so nice to be here with your community, and I love the work you're doing.
What an amazing conversation that we've just had with Chelsea, who really is there to help you balance your hormones and overcome any of the symptoms that you may be experiencing. So again, do click on those links below and reach out to Chelsea. The journey to health is just a call away. If today's discussion really resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button, give us a like, or even share this episode with someone else who will really take benefit from it. You are also welcome to check us out at www.sacredu, that's the letter U, .love, for more tools, resources, and empowering connection. Remember, your life is in your hands. So take this journey now whilst we have the opportunity. Have a beautiful day, and we will see you next time.